Ulysse, another French.
Bonjour, hello everybody. So we are probably having now one of the most interesting discussions about the four-screen strategy with a representative from four big companies, worldwide companies, which have each of them a huge number of viewers. I just want to remind you, just for example, that the BBC has 75 million unique visitors a month, 75 million for the BBC, Deutsche Welle 40 million visitors a month, Al Jazeera around 65 million Arabic and English sites, and CNN has around 70 million visitors. So what is the strategy of these companies? What is the four-screen strategy of the companies? I'm going to ask them, each of them, to answer very quickly, and then they will present their activities on a more lengthy presentation of around 10 minutes. So thank you, gentlemen, to be here, and I would like to ask you, each of you, what is today, in a few words, your four-screen strategy? And if we speak today of four-screen, we know already that there will be sometime a fifth screen. So what would be the screen of the future, the fifth one? First to answer, Wadah from Al Jazeera, who is an advisor to the president and a former general director of the channel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the strategy for the fifth screen will be similar to the strategy for the first four screens. Basically, is to concentrate on content, and as we saw actually in the statistics, people demand accuracy and credibility from us journalists. So content for me is the king. Then the platforms and the distribution themselves should be there in order to serve either news gathering or distribution. But the strategy always is to integrate the content in a centralized location and then redistribute the output based on the how the technology could accommodate that. Of course, if you have mobile phone, definitely, then the output should be different from having something else that you can see for a longer time. So the strategy would be content number one, then detailed output that suits the fifth screen or the first four screens.
Okay, and now the microphone to the representative of the BBC. You know, when I talked to the French television people before coming here to Hong Kong, I said, what is your four-screen strategy? And you know what they told me? Well, we are working on the two-screen strategy at the moment. I hope the BBC is ahead of us, probably is. James Montgomery, what is your strategy, and what is today, what do you see as the fifth screen?
Well, truthfully, I don't know what the fifth screen is. But if you'd asked me the same question 2 years ago, I might not have predicted the iPad. So I think the point is technology changes all the time, and you have to respond to that. And I think in terms of the BBC strategy, we're trying to move towards a seamless coherence between different platforms where you can access the same content in different ways according to the way audiences consume content at different times of day or how they use different devices differently. But to the extent that it's a joined-up experience and the content is delivered across multiple platforms, adding a fifth or a sixth in future won't be difficult.
Thank you. And now the mic to Guido Baumhauer from, sorry for my German, but Deutsche Welle from Germany. So same question, what is your strategy and how do you see or foresee the fifth screen, the fifth element?
As Wadah has correctly pointed out, I mean, content is king, and I fully support this, but I would even add, but efficient delivery is King Kong. For the simple fact, we really have to understand what screens are out there to adapt or to tailor the content to these screens. And like James, I wouldn't know what the fifth screen is. It could be our glasses, it could be maybe a button on this suit, it could be a microwave oven. I don't really care. We just have to understand if our users, that people that we call a target group, if they use it, we have to be there, and that is the crucial point. So we'll just see, but we won't wait and see. We just have to be quite eager to find that out.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker, Patrice Slupowski, who is Vice President of Digital Innovation and Communities for Next.com, which is part of the Orange Group.
Yeah.
So same question, what is your strategy and how do you see the fifth screen in the future?
I think the key word for strategy at Orange is probably everywhere. saying that we want to have the content and the elements we are distributing to our customer on every screen. This is the first part of the strategy. Then the second part is that we are differentiating the screens in order to have the best possible experience. So I would say if content is king, and you were saying even King Kong for the second part, I would say that experience is queen. And it's very important. It's because we're a male-only panel. I'm inviting queens as well. I think it's more and more we are doing things that first have to be the best possible experience on a screen. And for the fifth screen, I would say, as Guido was saying, that there are some screens existing already. If you're looking in Korea, already cars are a fifth screen, so maybe fridges, maybe clothes. Anything.
Okay, and I mentioned at the beginning of the session the number of unique visitors for BBC, around 75 million, Al Jazeera, 65 million a month, Deutsche Welle, 40 million. What about Orange? What is it in France and worldwide? Do you know?
In France, it's around 25 million, and worldwide, it's around 60 million. And with our friends of Dailymotion, since you know they've been acquired, we're even bigger than that, but that's significant, I would say.
Thank you very much. So we are going to start the real presentation. You have a question over there, please? Yeah, I come from the... Hold on, we're going to give you a mic. Please. Hold on. We are not going to start the discussion with the floor right now, but just to make it lively, we have one question over there. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is David Michaelis, and I come from the Bay Area. And the whole panel seems to be disconnected from a major social TV development which unites all the four screens through social media into a whole new dimension. So I would like you to relate to it, if you know what I mean by social media, the interactivity between the four screens, which causes a huge revolution as far as the Bay Area thinking is concerned.
I can handle
That's a good
one.
point, Patrice.
Yeah, since it's my second hat is social and interactive TV. So I like your question. You haven't been paid to raise this question, but I'm taking the opportunity to tell you that we're involved in something which is called TV Check, which is about checking on TV, automatically recognizing what's being broadcasted in order to socialize and engage in front of the TV on what we call the second screen or a companion device, which is going to interact with the TV. So yeah, it's a very important point, but I was not selling my product, in fact.
You just did.
Yeah, done.
Or maybe just last one before we start, really, please. Just wait a second to have the mic, and please introduce yourself so we know who you are. Thank you.
My name is Samah Abdallah. I'm an Egyptian journalist. I'm just asking a very simple question. Do you believe we need a fifth screen? Or do we need the fourth screens we have right now? I mean, if iPad would disappear tomorrow, is this going to affect us as professionals, not others like readers or recipients or whatever?
Well, probably the answer is not that we need it, but we are going to have it anyway.
I'm just asking because you are asking if it comes or if 6 comes.
So who would like to answer? Guido?
Are we running after the screens or we are? I don't know. Just get.
In the first place, did we need the first screen, right?
The fifth.
No,
Do we need a fifth? And then
okay. All right, Guido.
I think it's really important for us to just simply accept the fact that it's not for us to decide. We would like to, if the world would be as we would love it, we could easily say, well, we just want this because it just goes or works so nicely with the environment that we have. So we have to change our journalistic environment exactly to the reality which is out there. And if there is a fifth screen out there, be it whatever, we just have to decide for ourselves whether we find it important or not. So I think it's the flexibility which is important, which we need to just keep within our organization. Again, whether we like this or not.
Thank you. So now I would like to give the floor to Wadah Khanfar from Al Jazeera, who is going to present its strategy for the group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like actually to say something today regarding the 4 screens. We know that as far as the news gathering is concerned, all of us used during the Arab Spring and before that various tools of gathering the news, especially when the professional journalists and cameras were confiscated and we were not allowed. And until today, I think the coverage of Al Jazeera continues to be dependent on media activists on the ground rather than on professional journalists. But I would like to share with you one experience, which goes the opposite. When the first screen collapses, we found ourselves only using 3 screens. And that happened in the case of Egypt, when our signal on the satellite actually collapsed completely, and we were, in a way or another, blackout. And we could not reach out to our audience in most of the Arab world, especially in North Africa, because more than 65% of our audience in the world used Nilesat at that time, and more than 85% of them in North Africa. So how are we going to continue in a way or another broadcasting? In fact, I felt that day that we are only broadcasting for ourselves, because also the other sat, which is the major sat called the Arab sat, which covers the rest of the audience, was interrupted. The signal was interrupted by the Libyans. And for 2 hours or 3 hours, Al Jazeera was not at all broadcasting over the screen, the big screen, the first screen. So immediately I found myself heading towards the new media department. Automatically, I went to the guys, I said, listen, our screen is down. What can you do? So immediately they formed the team, they started operating on it. The live streaming on the mobile, the live streaming on all kind of platforms, of course, is there. They started through Twitter and Facebook promoting the fact that we are still available live on various platforms. And then when the technicians succeeded in getting us back on satellite on a different frequency, and this time it was American satellite, it was high enough that interruption cannot reach to it. And in fact, to give the signal to the audience, it was the duty of the new media team, who distributed efficiently the new signal and asked people to follow us on the new satellite. So the issue for us was a matter of life and death, actually. For a moment of time, this group of people called new media activists, who were seen for a long time in our newsrooms as young, enthusiastic chaps who know nothing about professional journalism, but they are, one of the weird kind of humans who are sitting in a corner of the newsroom, tweeting and using strange things, because traditional editors, they might not like actually this kind of people. But eventually we found that they are important for us. Then their location changed physically within the newsroom. Suddenly the team, which was sitting somewhere pushed away from heads of news and everyone to a side desk, they were actually asked to be sitting in the middle of the newsroom, because editors needed them, producers needed them, news gathering department needed them to give them information from the field, to give them from YouTube to download videos, and at the same time to get quick information through their sources on Twitter and many other platforms from all over the Arab world. So they became very important, integral part of our newsroom. That is number one. However, I would like to say something here very important. We have been busy discussing the issue of various platforms and the new media and social media and futuristic media and many other names that have been given to this phenomena for the last few years. Whenever I attend a conference, that is the major issue that people are discussing. I would say the most important issue for us should continue to be the content, should continue to be to what extent we as journalists are developing and enhancing our model and creating certain kind of standards and philosophy for what we do and how do we do it. I found that technology sometimes distracts us. It should help. It should become part of ways and tools of us reaching out to the people and interacting with audience. But it should not become central per se to an extent that the journalist become a technician. And in this case, he loses touch with the pillars of his profession. The pillar of our profession is to understand reality, to understand the context of it, to come up with great content, and then after that to give it to the public, to disseminate this one, and to interact with the public in order to get the feedback as well from them. From my experience in covering wars like the one in Iraq and the one in Afghanistan, I found sometimes that superficiality, reductionism, immediacy, and the fear of centers of power are actually prominent in the way that we do things. And sometimes the journalist who has been asked by his editors to come to the field with almost no team to help him, because as you know, we have economic crisis, so we cannot afford to send a lot of people to assist this poor correspondent. He has to be the journalist. Sometimes he has to be the technician. Sometimes he has to be the cameraman. Sometimes he has to edit his piece, and then he has to send it and make sure that it has been reported rightly on his screen. In this case, how do you expect this gentleman to go to a complicated society to cover stories that have been in making for the last 1,000 years, and to interact with the people and to understand their geopolitics and to understand their social and cultural fabric of the society, and to also project it in a manner that could be understandable from the public? We demand too much sometimes from our journalists. This is why I say, in order to come up with journalism that could be suitable for 4 screens or 5 or 10 screens, it starts from one important departure point: our responsibility. If we see ourselves as technicians or as business people, or even if we see ourselves as politicians or people who would like to propagate a message rather than to educate and to give knowledge to the public, I think we will be making a grave mistake. People come to us because they find in what we deliver great message. They find depth, they find proper understanding, they find accuracy, they find integrity, and we connect them to the truth. This is the basic, pillar of journalism, as not us, but even the forefathers of the profession have established. We need to continue doing that, and we need to, in fact, in a more complicated society, in multidisciplinary environment, we need also to upgrade the way that we look at our environment, and to get deeper rather than more superficial. Superficiality has become even much more, prevalent in the case of sometimes futuristic media and the new media. And I think we need to come up with journalism of depth rather than journalism of takeaway. Journalism, parachute journalism. Journalism that send people in order to collect a little bit of information, and on the screen they appear great analysts who are describing, long-term dynamics in societies and conflicts in various nations. In Al Jazeera, we decided that on a daily basis we are going to have an editorial meeting that brings together heads of editorial departments from all channels. And I used to describe that meeting at 1:00 p.m. as the maybe most important think tank that takes place in the region. Why a think tank? I used to tell the guys, I don't want anyone to speak about technicalities. No one should tell me about problems facing him collecting news or delivering news, or telling me any story regarding administration or financial issues. We are here to understand deeply what is happening today, to understand what is behind the surface, what exactly the story that we have reported means, to put it in context, to understand the history of it, to connect it to wider strategy of thinking, to put it in a framework rather than in a puzzle that confuses the mind, not to bombard the public of information and data that we even, journalists, do not understand what does it mean. We should first understand what does it mean in order to tell the public what does exactly this information or this incident or event means. So to convert our newsrooms into think tanks is very necessary. And journalists should really start thinking beyond the news or events or data in order to understand, to comprehend, to think. And number 2, you should be aware that all centers of power, I don't here mean governments only, because governments, elected or not elected, they have the same tendency of trying to, give you, trying to use you in order to propagate the message. In my opinion, all centers of power, including commercial, political, and sometimes even partisan, are very dangerous when it comes to your association with them. You need to guard the independence of the organization and guard the independence of the content. And I mean that. I mean it seriously. When I was reporting from Iraq and from Afghanistan, 90% of the information gathered by journalists used to come from spokespeople of the American Army and the British Army in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Why? Because journalists are scared to go out to see the Afghanis or to see the Iraqis and talk to them. And it's much more convenient to stay in a hotel and to go down to the press conference and to listen to the people and copy the data and send it everywhere. Some people might challenge the spokespeople. That's correct. Some people might give doubt to what this information is all about. That is true. But at the same time, don't forget that they are defining your agenda. They are giving you the framework of thinking. You are moving within the circle that they have defined the border of it. You should break away from it. You should find another model, another paradigm of thinking where you go to the people, you go to where the story is, and try really to dig deep into what's happening in order to challenge and to question centers of power and centers of authority rather than to question them while you have only their parameters of thinking around you. The third point, which I found very important in our reporting, is the issue of understanding societies. I cannot understand, why some of us do have their perceptions which they copy from the society. And in fact, some of us, including presenters and some of the people who would love to be shown or seen on the screen as, populist, let us say, or popular, they will just collect certain kind of perceptions and then they try to deepen this perception rather than to challenge it, including public perceptions. I think diversity within nations, within cultures, within societies, within political parties are there, and we need to understand them. Always I used to say that the role of the journalist is to see the cracks in the wall, not to describe the wall. We need to see the details of it and try to understand why these cracks exist, what does it mean, where it is going. So this is basically setting kind of concepts very quick. I mentioned all these themes, but to say one important final fact. Content and the perception about ourselves and about our role and how do we see ourselves within this sphere. We are not business people. We are not politicians. And we should be some people who carry a mission. Without that mission, I am afraid we will be lost between technicalities and commercialism and necessities, and we may end eventually being part of all powers that compete in order to dominate this world around us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your passionate speech. Would like to mention, remember when I talked about the numbers of unique visitors at the beginning of the session, I mentioned CNN, around 70 million visitors a month. That has to be checked. It's an estimate that we have, but we are not absolutely sure. As we don't have anybody from CNN here, I don't know if there is, but if there is not, we would like to check that later on. Our next speaker is James Montgomery from the BBC. Welcome. That's your turn.
So I'm going to talk about what a four-screen strategy means at the BBC. BBC is one organization. We think of ourselves as having 10 technical products, news, sport, weather, children's, learning, and so on. And we're trying to deliver it across primarily 4 screens, which are the desktop, obviously, tablet, mobile, and TV, including connected TV and ipTV. That's not to say that all content is delivered on all platforms or is delivered in the same way. One of the guiding principles that we work to at the BBC is that we try to put the audiences at the heart of everything we do. That can sound a bit corny, but actually it's taken very seriously at the BBC. And so we spend a lot of time analyzing how people consume content, in which ways, where they use different devices at different times of day, different devices at the same time, by demographic or by age and all the rest of it. So nearly every presentation at the BBC starts with some audience data, and I'm no exception. This is platform consumption by generation. The red and the blue lines are the interesting ones, I suppose. They're the digital platforms which you see, unsurprisingly, are much more popular amongst younger users, more popular in the case of the desktop website than TV and radio now. And although we can't know for sure, the assumption is that that trend will continue as that cohort grows older. Although it is possible that they will then migrate to linear platforms in future, but we don't think so. This is very similar to a slide that Frederick showed this morning. This data is from the UK, but I think it's probably true of most audiences. And this is consumption by device over the course of a 24-hour day. What you see clearly is that the mobile device is a very spike in the morning. That's basically the morning commute. The desktop is very popular at lunchtime. That's people consuming, checking the web in their lunch hour. And then in the evening, mobile again is popular, but tablet is especially popular. And I think that's perhaps a little skewed towards the UK, because in the UK we have an on-demand service called iPlayer, which delivers long-form programming. And basically what we suspect is happening, a lot of people are watching catch-up programs in the evening for leisure, possibly even in bed quite late at night. So it's different content at different times, consumed in different ways on different devices. In terms of the four platforms, if we talk about desktop briefly, a lot of our thinking on the desktop site is about updatedness and how we can keep the site almost like a live broadcast platform where it updates very quickly. We've had some big success with these live blogs or live event pages. This is one from the riots that took place in the UK earlier this year. It's very multimedia. So you've got streaming TV pictures or video. And then you've got on the left lots of very quick updates coming in from not just our reporters in the field, but also from UGC, other sources, a bit of aggregation of the best of other content we find online. And it constantly updates, and we find that if there's a very important story breaking, we can update it almost in real time, and the user engagement is very high. People will stay on it for a long, long time. Sorry, wrong button. It's been boosted enormously by, this is our political correspondent outside Downing Street, Nick Robinson. We have a tool called Quickfire, which allows reporters in the field to send in snippets of text direct from their phone straight into our editorial systems in the newsroom, so that we can ingest content very quickly and publish it very quickly. So we're quicker than the wires sometimes. And in fact, we're going to move beyond this soon to an iPhone app that we will give to most of our reporters, who will then be able to not just text, but also pictures and even video. Sorry, I'm doing it again. One of the advantages of the breaking news platform I've just shown you is that it also is an excellent way of driving our social media presence. So all those little updates can become tweets or posts to a Facebook page, such as BBC Breaking News, which I think has in excess of 2 million followers now. And it's also great for mobile, because we know that people like to consume breaking news on their handheld devices as they're traveling around. Talking of mobile, this is currently our mobile offer. On the right, you have our iPhone or iPad app. In the middle, you've got our mobile browser site, and on the left, you have our desktop site. In future, we think we're going to move to, we're going to move to a technology called responsive design, which is a presentation layer which allows you to detect the device that the user is using, and then you can optimize the content by according to the device that they are. So you can tell whether they're on a feature phone or a smartphone, and whether they can use video. You can detect their location and serve them relevant content. You can detect their location and maybe serve them content in a local language. And of course, you can optimize the content to the screen size automatically. And we want to make our mobile content more shareable. We know that Facebook usage on mobile is very high, and we want to increase that. And a word on social briefly. To your question earlier, we see it as really important. So we have BBC World News Facebook page has 1.3 million fans now. BBC Breaking, as I mentioned, has 2 million followers. And we see that the overlap between news users and Facebook users is really high. So we increasingly want to be distributed on mobile, via mobile onto social platforms. ipTV, the third platform, we've just launched an ipTV app on Samsung, Panasonic, and soon Sony devices. It's video-centric. One of the things we've discovered is that audiences are much more willing, much keener to watch more video on ipTV on demand than they are on perhaps a desktop website. So you've got a carousel here, and you can scroll through and watch whichever news clips you're most interested in. And we see a huge future for that. It's really a hybrid of the web and the TV experience. So it's a sort of a lean-back experience, but it has the on-demand functionality, and it reaches an audience who previously would have been thought of themselves as TV consumers or people who consume the news primarily by TV, but are now getting a more digital experience. And then the fourth screen, obviously, is the tablet. It has all the features that I've just mentioned, but we see two other particular advantages of the tablet. One is it's a great means of consuming video. I think the BBC, obviously, by background, is a broadcaster, so we have a lot of video content, and we see that there's a great way of delivering it to users here. And the other one is really long-form text. People can read longer on the tablet, and we can think of innovative ways of delivering long-form text rather than just a lot of words, but with pictures and some interactivity as well. In terms of delivering the content to audience in different ways, is becoming more varied and more sophisticated, but at the same time we're trying to internally combine our operations to make them efficient in a way so we can support all these different outlets. This here is our Olympic site. Obviously the Olympics are going to be in London next year, so that's a big commitment for the BBC and a lot of investments going on there. But the point about this is that it's driven very much by metadata. So there's a lot of tagging going on here that allows us to create on-the-fly automatically generated pages for almost every athlete, every sport, every venue, entirely through metadata. And you can see that it's quite a rich page with a lot of content. We're going to bring the same approach to news as well, so that we can have more efficiency in our news publishing and in our newsroom. The second thing I'd mention is we have introduced a pan-BBC global visual language for our design, which works for all platforms. So this is our news site in Arabic, and this is it in Russian. So it's using, as you can see, it uses the same design precepts, but it can work left to right in different scripts and in different ways. And the last thing I'd mention, this is briefly our Asia homepage of our news website. So we've done some recent additionalization, but again, within the same design language. And then lastly, this is our new newsroom in London, in central London. All of BBC journalism is moving to a central single venue from disparate parts of London early next year. It'll be a state-of-the-art building with new studios, the latest technology. But we also see it as an opportunity to introduce new ways of working when we've got English journalists working in other languages, TV, radio, and online, all in one building, and all sharing content and working in a very multi-platform way. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question before you go back to your seat. I've read that the BBC was forced to reduce its capacity in investment on the web because of complaints from private television networks. Was it true, and did you reduce it, and how is it now?
It was true. You're talking about in the UK. There was a review last year which led to cuts of, I think, 25% in the online investment overall. But it's worth mentioning that news was relatively protected from those cuts. There were a lot of non-news sort of program sites around either around programs or around sort of hobbies like cooking or gardening or stuff, which they were cut back more. It was partly in response to, you're right, private sector complaints about in-market impact, as we call it. But it can be overstated, because I think you'll find that the investment in BBC News Online is still very strong and very, it's a major commitment for us still.
Thank you. Our third speaker from Germany, Guido, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Okay, so to use up my time on the way to get here, how many of you know Deutsche Welle? Oh, come on, you're doing this to make me feel good, right? Okay, so you know that we are Germany's international broadcaster and we have content in 30 different languages. That's 30. And if I say we are Germany's international broadcaster, I have to admit I don't really like that term, broadcaster. Because I think there's much more to it. We just struggle to find a new term. What are we? Content producers? It's nothing that we really like to hear. But basically, if you want to find content, to get it to the right screens, get it to the people, then you have to be more than just a broadcaster. And that's something I'd like to talk about. To keep you all fit, because I'm sure that some of you might suffer, like myself, from a jet lag. Who of you know these Waldo books? You know them. Okay, so we're going to find Waldo because he's the user. He's the person that needs to be at our attention. We need to focus at this guy, and we need to find him. So what I'd like to talk to you about is these three things, right? First, just a very brief overview of how we see the media markets. Then what is our answer? We call it distribution strategy. Sounds clumsy, and it sometimes is. And then, of course, what do we do with the user? How do we find him? Now, these were the days when everything was good. Deutsche Welle was just a lovely and very tasty offer. We were one of the few ones in the market. There was not too much competition. It was great. So we were able to just focus on ourselves, focus on our product. Now, as you can imagine, this is today's world, and I could easily add more to this. There's a lot of more competitors. I've just restricted myself to just have some other international broadcasters up there, like Al Jazeera, like Russia Today. And all of a sudden, we do realize we really have to convince people that we have still, or especially now, we have something to offer, that we're still tempting. So that's one of the tasks we see right now, because many of the competitors are national competitors as well. And people, honestly speaking, like yourselves, you don't really care whether it's Deutsche Welle's mission to reach out, to reach other people. You either like the content that we offer, or you simply don't use it. And some years ago, what users did, or what viewers did, or listeners did, was this. They were all staring to one direction. Now, obviously, this is just a beautiful German woman here in the front. So, be it Germans, be it others, it doesn't really matter. It was just very much focused on one mass media feeling. All were doing the same at the same time. Now, obviously, this has changed, which brings us to Waldo. Today, and I think we've heard this a couple of times already since yesterday, anything, anytime, anywhere is possible. And damn it, the consumer is not even only a consumer, he's a producer at the same time, which makes it a prosumer every now and then. So who of you has spotted Waldo? You've spotted Waldo. Where is it? Yeah, exactly. Marvelous eyesight here. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's worth an applause here, isn't it? Yeah. So we really have to try and understand what the users want. And good enough, we have this mouse which helps us to understand. And I guess you know why. That's because this mouse has a long tail. Yeah. I'm sure many of you, most of you know the theory of the long tail, which means we have to understand the market and how it works. We have to understand that within this long tail, there is an answer to many questions that otherwise would remain unanswered. It simply means tiny products or tiny content pieces might add up to a larger usage pattern. It's not just going for this one big thing that hopefully grabs the masses. So that's something we had to embrace, which brings us to the editors. And that was the editor's fear, that all of a sudden they have to turn themselves into some Shiva god with many arms, having to work for all these various platforms, having to tailor the different content to all these platforms, which we all know is simply not possible. You can't just go to a radio editor and tell them, well, from now on you're not a radio editor anymore. You are a content producer. But basically that's what we did. So it was a huge issue to find the right people, to do a lot of training, to adapt into that direction. Which brings us to the question, how does the distribution work? Fairly simple, and that's why I like this slide. It is very simple, and it provides the answer to basically all the answers that we need. But it's something that we as public broadcaster have not paid any attention to, at least not enough attention to in the beginning. We were never defining our target groups. It was even the word yuck, you say target groups. No, it's just people. But to be quite frank, if you're living abroad, if you're living in some country and Deutsche Welle offers you content, let's say in Chinese, if you don't speak Chinese, why would you use it? But if you speak Chinese and you had the chance to use it, why would you do so? So what is the reason? The reason is we have to really understand and see what is it that people are interested in, and then define the right content. And then that's when the technology kicks in. That's when you have to understand what is the right distribution to do so. When I started my job, I was surrounded by my current job now. Previously, I was the editor-in-chief at Deutsche Welle for the online operation. That was my world. I knew what was happening. All of a sudden, I was surrounded in my new job by engineers. And they said, yeah, you know, we have this great new transmitter. It's power efficient, it's wonderful, and it's really the best radio you can get. I said, yeah, what are we going to transmit? Silence. Well, that is not for us to decide. We were just putting up this transmitter. So basically, they were turning this whole thing upside down. They came up with the distribution means first, and later on were thinking about the content or the people to reach. So that's why we've gone through the whole of Deutsche Welle, through all different departments, 30 languages, and took them through this process, which was quite tough, because what we want to achieve is this. This is the target group. And we want them to be as active as they can. We want them to become part of what we do, and not just fall asleep because of Deutsche Welle's transmissions. So the answer lies in these two apples, quite obviously. Because if we look at our audience, or look at the target group, these are the two cornerstones. One is definitely, as a public broadcaster, there's always something that we want to say or want to tell our audience. And then on the other hand, there's something that they want to hear. And we have to make sure that we find or define what is relevant to the people in the middle. And then we can decide what kind of screen we have to use. Because in the end, this helps us to shape the product. So it has to be the right mix, so to speak. Now we came up with a very clumsy term in the year 2005, which is this: multi-platform distribution or multi-platform strategy. And what lies behind it is the Pope. And I'm sure you know that the Pope is German. And the Pope is on our side, because the Pope helped us to explain the whole change that we were going through. P-O-P-E, very simple, plan once, publish everywhere. So this was not about, and that's really important to see, it was not about producing things once and then distributing this one item everywhere. That does not work, and we know this now. I think we've all learned it by heart. So you have to plan from the beginning, and then you publish it on the right screen, so to speak. And I did bring, and I just quickly flip through it, just a boring example, just to show how simple things can be. We had a television show, or still have it, Ideas for a Cooler World. It's about environmental issues, global ideas. Now, we have adapted it to a website. Boring, yeah, full stop. Usually that's where the story would have ended. But we were planning this in the beginning and said, no, we want something more out of it. Great. So we started a blog together with environmentalists. They helped us put up this blog around these issues. This was not a promotional thing. It was something that we thought, relates to it. And those of you who know that Deutsche Welle has started the Weblog Award in 2004, the Bob's Best of Blogs, And here we have people nominating blogs, and they can decide what the best blog is. So we're really well connected to the blogosphere, and that helped us to come up with this idea. So we basically asked them, what do you propose? And all of a sudden, they came back with this idea. Then this year, web documentary. Again, this is nothing special, but you can't go out, shoot a story, then come back and later on decide that you want to do this. You have the editor or the reporter had to take pictures. They had to make sure that these pictures go nicely with the text. They had to take pictures to turn it into graphics so that finally the user can navigate through that story. Again, that's something which only works if the Pope has done its job in the beginning. And then, of course, we're part of Facebook. Now, which brings us to Waldo. Let's quickly look at the user and the user's side. I believe this is the message that we have to embrace, whether we want it or not. I think nobody here in this room just loves change just for the sake of it. I think we would all like to stay away from it if we could. Unfortunately, and that was my statement in the beginning, I think we have to embrace change and see it as part of the game, part of the current situation that we all as editors go through. Because there is something that we need to enable. First thing is the skill shift, and that's something we have talked about yesterday. Again, a very clumsy term, but what does it mean? It means we have to work with all these tools, we have to understand the tools, the content management systems, the different devices. That's a certain skill set. And I think it was Wolfgang Blau today who was talking about this, how hard it is for him to find new people who understand this new way of thinking. And of course, I was mentioning that we do a lot of training. And we have difficulties in finding people who know these skills. But what is even more important than this, because this can be trained, something which is a lot harder, is the mind shift. It's a digital mind, it's a different mind, a way of thinking that has to be understood by the editors. Otherwise, they will not really go along and do what needs to be done. And we gave this a different name. We called it the Facebook mind. Some of you might find this looks a little bit horrible. We just use this picture because it sticks into the minds of the editors when we're explaining it to them. Because what we said is, take just Facebook as a symbol or a synonym for social media. As the editor, you have to think like the users, and you have to try to get yourself into their head. So otherwise, it's not going to work. And some of these terms, because that's what we believe the future is, if we just stand at a gate, because we consider ourselves as gatekeepers, we are the ones to decide what is right, what is wrong. We're standing on top of this mountain and we're broadcasting down on these people, then we're out. We have to stop this top-down broadcasting, and in a way that's why I believe we have to stop thinking in broadcasting terms. We have to become part of a dialogue, so the gatekeeper has to understand if he or she still stands at the gate, the users, the people will just walk around us because the gate has no fence anymore. Everybody can access any information if they want to. So the gatekeeper has to become a networker, become part of a network. And I think we've heard some terms yesterday like a curator. This could be a role, and then we were using the term conversation instead of dialogue. Doesn't really matter how you call it. It's just a certain mindset that has to become part of our daily routine as editors. Because if we do this, if we do what we are afraid to do, we also have to allow for mistakes, allow for trial and error. And that, I believe, as far as Deutsche Welle is concerned, I can be quite frank here, there was a major shift within Deutsche Welle. Because, like we've heard yesterday from Meredith, she said, oh, I hate making mistakes. Well, I'm German. We hate making mistakes. Okay, next time we go to a final in the World Cup, we're going to win this thing, okay? You can try me on this one. So again, trial and error is part of it. But that again means, because that creates a certain atmosphere. And without this atmosphere, if people are afraid to make a mistake, they're not going to come up with new ideas. So I believe this is really, really crucial, and that's nothing that you can just easily get. So if we have to fail, can't be avoided, I would like to fail forward. I would like to turn these mistakes into something better, at least in the end. Because then we'll be able to have a smiling Waldo and finally find the user and be engaged with him in a dialogue and not just have some ignorant guy out there who does not care what we do. So we hope that our ideas, the ideas that we develop within Deutsche Welle, will finally grow into big ideas. And for those of you who do know a little bit of German, my last name is Baumhauer, so I was a little bit hesitant, you know, because it means lumberjack to come up with this. But it basically means if you have an idea, like if users have an idea, we're very happy to cooperate and do something together because we believe we're all part of a big network. Thanks very much.
That was exciting. Thank you very much. And now our last speaker from Paris.
Last but not least, I hope. Thank you, Guido. I think that was really, really good to see that I'm not the only crazy guy in the conference, and that we can go into some ideas. I need to take the clicker. Well, the iPad is getting connected. The good thing is that I've been losing my iPad yesterday evening. I've forgotten it in the restaurant. The good news is that in Hong Kong, they just keep it for you, and so you won't have the backup thing, which was a little song, maybe the lumberjack song, I don't know. But so I'm going quickly to tell you a few things which are directly related to the four-screen, the way we see the problem of content discovery and recommendation in a very, very rich digital world. For those who don't know, I'm Patrice Slupowski. This is my Twitter name, and I'm from Orange, France Telecom. So I would say that the world, the digital world in which the people are living, is that kind of world now. So we've done our job, we've put everything online, and people are lost. And just to ask you, do you know what is the logo, the little logo of Twitter? Can you describe the logo of Twitter? Yeah, small bird. Okay, it's like that, in fact. It's really like that, and because there's a lot of noise, there are a lot of things, and this is exactly how people are perceiving Twitter. And what we've tried to do, just to give you an example of an experience we've done end of 2008, we've tried in the news domain, we've tried to come with a new experience to create a site, a media on the full screen, which was created after the emergence of internet. This means, in fact, bringing a 100% dedicated to news, TV, press, and radio service. So we've been able to bring back, using a very complex technology, indexing, searching, etc. We've been dealing with 60 partners, the most famous TV, radio, and newspapers in France. We've been doing a lot of multi-channel. We've been creating a dedicated experience on each of the screens, not to replicate what was needed, but just to say, okay, we'll do the best site on the PC, we'll do the best tablet experience, the best mobile for each platform, doing very, very dedicated thing. And what we've seen with that, and perhaps we can switch on the iPad if I want to show you a little bit, if it's possible to have the iPad. For the kind, when I was speaking about experience, I was, if the network is working well, speaking of something like that. This means this is how the home page, the first page a user can see, has to be when it's about a tablet. And this application is really, really loved by the people because they think that it has been designed specifically for the tablet. It's not something that we replicate from the website, etc. So what you see on this one is on the left, you have all the different TV news, all the radios, all the online press, and then you can watch the video, you can play with that, etc., etc. So just being back on the slides, if possible, please. Can you bring back the presentation, please? Thanks. So we've done that. We had a relative success, I would say, mainly because what we've done with that, and we were not aware, we were adding more noise to the noise, in fact, because we were just putting all the different elements together without the ability for the people to have some recommendation. And so this site is now going to be integrating our portal. I think that I have problem moving to the next slide. So we'll be, in a few days, 24/24 Actu will be integrated in the Orange Actu, which is one of the top 3 news sites in France, just in order to capitalize and to reuse all these clustering and technology. But we've been working on a new product just to try to have the possibility to guide the user in the way he's consuming the news. And to do that, we're coming with a new one. This is the first time, in fact, I'm showing this. It's something which is at the intersection of 3 worlds. There is the world of professional news aggregation and distribution, things we have either through agencies we are partnering with or with Dailymotion, I mean some aggregating platform and distribution platform. So I would say on the left the left side, no, not yet. Professional news. On the part below the Twittosphere, this means the public Twitter, not the people I'm following specifically, and the third part, which are my contents, the things I'm following, the people I'm following in my own social network, in my Facebook. And the idea behind that is, let's use that to recommend, and let's use the social media to filter the traditional media and have less noise. So I'm going to do a little demo, but before we're moving to the demo, after experiencing 20 years of failing demos, I have a little bit of recommendation just to get rid of the famous demo effect. So first of all, don't use your smartphone or tablet where I'm playing, please. Second one, stop tweeting. If you can, stop breathing as well, or at least for 30 seconds. Make a wish. And I'm trying to have all the possible good things to help me. Here in China, it's the 888. And cross the fingers. We're going to try to go on the iPad again. It's not yet the demo effect. So this mic is working better. So Newsblend is a social magazine. So what does that mean? It means that this is the first page. What you see on the left are traditional news, and every time you have a news, we're putting and we're crossing the news with some kind of elements which are coming from the social networks. If I'm taking this example, so it's about a French rock singer, you see that we have the news which is coming from BFM, and we also have the reaction in white of one of my friends, which is saying something about that. When I'm going into the page, I have on one page not only the official article, but the different article which can be found on the Twittosphere or in my network, which are speaking about the same topic. So it's not that I'm on the one single topic, I'm trying to have all the different things which are said by 60 different media partners. It's just that I'm trying to have and to understand the attention of the public, the attention of the people I'm following on this kind of topic. So after that, we've simply taken the patterns of the magazine. So every time I want to get more about something, I'm just clicking on that, and then I can watch the video. Normally, I guess some have started to breathe again, so the network is no longer working. Never mind. So normally the video is loading, or yeah. So these kind of things. Then I can go to other pages. Every time I'm using, for For instance, I'm going to see an article which is coming from Le Figaro, the French newspaper, the very famous French newspaper. Every time I want to get into details, I won't be taking the whole article inside Newsblend. I will just get, if the networks wants to cross the ocean and go back to France to find the server, you will see that it's simply Le Figaro site. Since we're not stealing the content from the site, we're just distributing the article, and we're just presenting it exactly how it can be seen on the site. So you see that all the ads are kept on the right, and that Le Figaro does his business with that without any change. So you will be able to play. We can go back to the slides. You would be able to play with that in a few days. Can we move back? So thank you. I hope we'll be able to have a French and an English version by the last days of 2011. Due to the fact that Apple is going to have a very crowded roadmap in terms of validating the new applications, maybe it will be a 2012 surprise. So we're taking videos, we're taking today's drawing, we're taking video of the day, etc. We're taking polls, we're taking Facebook, Twitter, we're mixing everything, and then comes Newsblend. With all the different categories. Once again, it's a multimedia interactive news mag. Curate content with an algorithm. We're not using journalists, etc. That's not our job. We're simplifying. We're just trying to simplify the way people are accessing the content. We're clustering all this information. We're trying to have, as much as possible, the real-time information coming from the social media, because Twitter is probably the most efficient in that. And we try to help distribute all the media brands, all the content which is done by professional media brands. And to be as simple as possible, as I was saying, experience is queen in that. This is it, landscape and portrait mode. By the way, we are just open to any other discussion with media groups. We've started already discussing with them, since we think that on these kind of new ideas that we're trying, as Guido was saying, to be able to fail if possible, or to fail forward and bring new ideas, it's key. So this is how we wanted to show you how news are changing with us. And soon in best stores, stay tuned, and you can follow us on Twitter to get news.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Maybe we have time for one question, maybe two questions, but very short questions and short answers, if there are any in the room or not. No question at all for our panel? Yes, please.
This is an app?
Attends, let's wait for the mic.
Yeah, just one question. Nobody mentions strategy about monetization. I know content is key, but at the end we have to pay.
Okay, so quick answer from BBC maybe.
So, well, I mean, first of all, the point to make, I suppose, is that in the UK we're publicly funded anyway, so monetization's not achieved through advertising. Our international services are commercial, and there are a number of monetizations on them. So where it's video centric, we know that we can make pre-rolls and other advertising around video, which normally has higher CPMs than just ordinary display. The ipTV app that I showed you has, because it's video centric, there are pre-roll adverts and also some display advertising at the bottom of the screen on that. And tablets also have quite good display advertising opportunities.
Thank you.
It's essentially an advertising model, but there are new formats and new platforms do deliver new monetization opportunities for us.
Okay, the other question from Le Figaro. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, Cecilia Gabizon from Le Figaro. Sorry, asking for the French. How is it working? Is it working with, how do the publisher get money from your application?
I'm quite embarrassed with the question because if I'm answering, I have to kill you after that. No, it's simply an aggregator. So we're going to distribute it as free. It's a tool for the people to use, and we hope it helps them consume the media on the site of the publisher. So it's an engine which is just mixing the thing in order to bring a good experience for finding the relevant media.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other question in the room? No. Okay. Well, I think we had very brilliant and funny and interesting presentations. So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you all. Thank you.
So coffee break, and then.